buy-in mindset and figure out how to partner stores and brands for mutual success. We did have a buyer who was originally scheduled for the panel who was unable to make it for direct buyer questions. If you came with buyer questions, I'm going to take off my Playtime hat and put on my buyer hat. I am a buyer for a downtown store, so I can answer kind of the specifics there, at least from the perspective I bring. But I'm so pleased to have here with me Emily DeLons-Tormo, the co-founder of Vibe Creative Consulting. Vibe is a consultancy that works with small and medium-sized businesses, much like many of yourselves, and brings creative strategies in branding, product development, marketing, and sales. So we're very happy to have Emily here to bring, she's got a background in both retail and wholesale, so she's got a very well-rounded perspective, and kids clothing, and all sorts of different industries that she consults in. I wanted to recap quickly where we left it last session and the things that we learned in our first installation of this buying seminar. Do your homework when approaching buyers. You know, it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, so really hone your strategy there. Get personal. We did learn some really kind of nitty-gritty. If you are an international brand, be sure you're dealing in landed prices, US dollars, all-inclusive, because the buyers don't want to be making any calculations or having any surprises at the end of the day. When you're pitching, be sure to embed a great photo and limit your text, not paragraphs of text. They pointed out last time they could get 150 emails in a day. So no Dropbox links, not a lot of text. Make it short, sweet, and powerful. And lastly, if you're also selling direct to consumer, be mindful of your retail network. And if you're deciding that it's time for you to do a sale of this season's goods, make sure you're communicating that across your network and even offering retailers an opportunity to buy in to maybe a lower wholesale so everybody can win in that sale and you're not driving competition amongst your own network. So that's kind of the recap, and now we're going to take this conversation a little bit forward, and I'm going to pass to Emily. After she speaks, we're going to move into Q&A, and so I hope that you bring a lot of questions, what challenges you're having, what questions you have, what observations you have on the market, and maybe we can work together and come up with a few good answers. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Emily. So I might just add a little something. So I work actually in 4 countries. I work here in the US, Canada, the UK, and France. So pretty much like I've worked with many different industries, mostly fashion. So what I want to say is that like all the best practices I see in other industries, they can apply to me as well. My business partner works a lot in wholesale, I work a lot in retail, so we combine, we join forces to offer strategies pretty much that can help, you know, the brand to reach the right customers. So you have a little, for those of you who have a little handout, so I gave you a couple of tips. The first thing I want to tell you is we're talking about how you can build strong relationship. I'd rather say how you can build a strong partnership, because partnership is definitely like a win-win. You're targeting the same customers, and actually your customers are going to be the brand customers. So it's like they need you, you need them. You might want to listen to the brand actually and take all the feedback and provide them the best service actually. So that's just this kind of partnership I'm talking about. You want them to think about you first, so that's why you really need to have a strong partnership with them and just grow and adapt little by little. We want to talk about the researching your clients and their customers. To me, you have to live locally, meaning, well, you can visit the store, of course, but I don't know how many of you are from foreign countries, maybe, some of you. You all, yeah, you are? Did you visit the stores already? Here, yeah. You do? Okay. Well, I guess that's the main point, you know, well, when visit the store, you can hold them ahead and see if you can just talk to them as well. But knowing the culture, knowing the communities involved, knowing how the store works with them as well. I used to run a store actually on the Upper East Side over there, Kids Clothing Store. And some of my clients, the very big clients, they used to come on a very specific date, during the year. So actually, if I knew about that, I knew like the logistics behind, and I knew I needed to have this very specific product for them to come. So that's the kind of thing you need to talk to the buyers about it. You want to know as well about the holidays, about the country, like everything that's going on. You want to know where you can jump in and provide the right products at the right time. The key moment of the year, I'm thinking Valentine's Day is around the corner, and a lot of stores actually celebrating Valentine's Day here for the kids in the US. So how can you, in advance, plan everything and have logistics and supply chain all ready for that? We talked about that a lot with Jen actually as well. How can you stand out? I guess the main point when meeting with new buyers or even buyers you already know is how to always be relevant to them. So the main question you have to ask yourself, like always, is who are you? So what are you bringing? What's the difference you can make? Why should they care actually? Why the buyer should care about you? And how are you different from any other brand? But also, how do you fit into the selection they already have in store? So that's why the first part of researching the store and the customers is really important. But also, knowing about the local competitors. So how are you different, but how can you fit as well and be a perfect match to the store? I feel right now more than ever, buyers also have a very strong vision. It changes, it's like the today's environment is changing a lot and goes very fast. So you need to be very flexible and to be able to adapt to them, to the world around us, to their vision. And I'm thinking I wrote down the targeting and not e-blasting, because I know it can be hard, especially for new brands. I heard there were 20% of new brands this year here at Playtime New York, which is huge. It's really great, and I feel right now their main challenge is going to be to really be able to target the specific stores that are going to be interested in their brand and their vision, in what they can bring to kids clothing and lifestyle in general. So right now, a lot of brands have a voice as well, So standing out is also about that. It's also about having a voice. Why did you start this brand? Why did you start it? And how can you be relevant to the specific store you're targeting? Also, it's more on the practical side. Just right after Playtime here in New York, I'm from France, so I know in France, for example, after some shows, you might take, a couple of days just not to relax at all, just to make sure you're processing everything. All the buyers, if they were very busy, they might be like 2 days, to just, just like look at everything and make up their own mind. In the US, you don't do that. In the US, we work fast, you follow up quickly. It's a cultural thing right here. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but all the clients we had on the wholesale part, we always recommended that. Pretty much here, for all of you targeted in the US, it is cultural, yes, but it's also you positioning yourself against the competition. You better be the first one to get a slice of the budget and the last one. You want the brands to remember you. So go ahead, definitely just right after the show, you shoot those emails and you go with the flow. I feel it's also important because it tells what kind of partner you can be in the long run. If you're going to be the reactive one, or if you're going to be the one maybe waiting for the buyer to let you know kind of what you need to do. Also, on the proactive part, I think is really very important factor to make sure your partnership is going to be successful in the long run. How can you be more proactive? I'm pretty sure all of you have social media all set up and Instagram and all the sales pitch and everything is ready. And how can you be proactive to help buyers like Jen, continue wanting your brand, and continue pushing associates to sell your brand on the floor. And I think definitely marketing and sales strategies are very important. So you have your products well designed, it's a great product. The buyers is, you had a great offer and everything is fine. So how can you be more proactive to make sure those customers as well are going to continue buying your products? I work the wholesale and the retail like in sync. My business partner Tiffany and I, all the strategies we recommend come together as wholesale and retail thoughts. Actually, we never go with wholesale first or retail first. Your main target is pretty much the customers, and even like the consumer you have, but the kids are the second target of your products. We see a lot of new technology in stores as well. I'm not sure it's already really done in the kids clothing market, but in women's fashion, a lot of stores and specialty stores, they have new technology. They have iPads, they have tablets. So, well, obviously they don't sell marketing prints, anymore. That's it. And pretty much you don't need it in the store. You don't really need them. But technology, little by little, the stores all themselves, you're going to be able to be very proactive about that and ask the store what you can do, ask the buyers what you can do to be more relevant and to help the stores sell more of your products. I'm thinking as well, and that comes from other industries. I don't know if the buyers do that a lot, but some brands do a lot of incentives as well with sales associates. So obviously you have to talk to buyers first, and it has to be with the contract or something that has to be very clear. But I feel right now everything is going on the internet. So sales associates like re-evaluating their role, in the store. And I'm not talking about you're going to be very respectful of their work, I'm sure, because selling your products. But how can you help them more? So what kind of other sales material can you provide for them to be able to sell your product even more and be more convincing with those customers? By the way, those customers, they're changing a lot. They are evolving a lot right now. Well, I'm studying a lot of millennials. I'm also studying the Gen Z coming right after. They are more connected than ever. They're talking to their peers. They're part of communities. So social media is very important, but also the word of mouth and the parents' community is huge. Here in New York, we have so many groups on Facebook. People who meet, parents are asking about products to their friends at school. It's really, really a strong tight community. And I feel with all the issues are maybe things that other companies are working now. I'm talking sustainability, innovation, like sourcing new materials. I'm talking about diversity. It's really big here in the US actually. Thank you, Earnshaw, for the great cover that you guys have as well. Now, it's a very important thing here. So know how to talk to those people as well, gender neutral. I don't know if it reminds you some brands have gender neutral clothing as well, but it's becoming more and more important for parents too here. Now of course get all the feedback you can get from the store. Everything, I don't really depend on the store, I guess, but like how, if you meet monthly, or maybe you call monthly, or depending, I don't know. But all the feedback you can get about the products, about how people react to what you have, and to your brand, to your products, sorry. How people, what's the shopping behavior with your products? So are the colors okay? Is the style okay? So everything around all the reaction you can get it, and then it's going to make you better. It's going to help you grow, and that's very constructive feedback. Usually, is the one you get from people in store and on the floor talking to the customer. They talk to the customer every day. We talked with Jen about this interesting thing as well, about the drops. I don't know if you're very familiar with the fact of dropping products. A lot of brands right now, mostly designers, I'm thinking, they're very high designers, also comes from the streetwear world. It's pretty big here in the US and in New York. It's actually the fact that you build a smaller collection. It's like you produce a little less, but also you renew yourself a lot more. So you stay on top of trends always. It might be easier for some stores actually to handle that kind of thing. And by that, I just want to say that it's not, you don't have one only successful business model. You can also evolve, you can change how you work with stores and with buyers. The job model is pretty interesting because in that case, you stay fresh and exciting for buyers, but for all your customers as well. So you might want to consider other ways of selling and of showing yourself and putting yourself out there in the world. The last thing I want to say, that we might take questions if you have. Be ready to be really flexible, to be able to adapt very quickly, adapt to your buyer, adapt to your customers, adapt to your consumers. Those little kids are also, they are very strong-minded. And they can be also ready to take risk in that kind of partnership. Maybe at one point, you might want to, take a bit more risk in your relationship with the buyer. Maybe about like inventory, maybe about style, maybe about some outfits. But it's something that you need to consider as well. And I guess that can be a great payoff.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. This is a lot of topics to explore. I just want to kind of piggyback on the idea of drops. That is, something that we're seeing more and more of, more drops, more frequently, smaller collections. It helps buyers with cash flow. It helps our consumer that doesn't have a long attention span. We want our consumer to come into the store over and over and over. You want to keep driving them back. So I have seen that be a successful strategy with the brands that have used that, where they break up a collection that might all drop at one time in the past, and now it's being sent multiple times throughout the season, so that there's always something new, and you don't have groups of clothing going into sales cycle or everything going into sales cycle, but you always have some new full-priced items as well. One other thing that Emily said that I think is true, timing is an advantage. When you're dealing with buyers, if you have a shorter or an earlier date by which, and I don't want to encourage it to be too early, but I think budgets do get used up, and so kind of the first really compelling brand to close their orders, I think does, there's kind of a cascading and you're using your budget as you go, and you could have a really great brand, but if it's late in the game and there isn't a sense of urgency, it might get overlooked. So I don't want to make everybody crazy, and I know it all depends on your factories and your timing and what's best for you, but I think that is a strategy that I've seen work for people. And the last thing that I just want to underscore that Emily said, sales associates are the last frontier of a retail store. They are the ones that are making those people that come in love your brand. So the more they know, the better your story, the more they understand what's so great and meaningfully different about your brand, the better. I have not seen incentives in clothing. We deal in a lot of categories. I have seen it in gear, and it is a way, even if it's a little thing, a little tchotchke that, or an adult t-shirt, maybe a contest to get an adult t-shirt from your brand, to engage the retail associates, because everybody, if they're selling it, if they're good salespeople, they're believing it too. They're believing in your product. So getting them to know it better means they're really gonna, think of you more quickly when they're dealing with a new customer. But I do want to take it to Q&A, so don't be shy. I can get this microphone around and see if anybody has questions. Oh, yes. I don't know if I'll be successful with this microphone thing,
I did visit the store, one of our stores, and I found out that our products are really like jammed on the racks. Then the shop assistant, the moment I walk in, she's like, oh, okay, and then she brings me in front. But would you suggest a nice way of communicating that to a shop that I'm not saying I don't want to be right in front, I'm not saying, but just, for instance, my garments, they sometimes need a bit more space to see because they're a bit sophisticated. How can I tell them nice in a nice way so not to intimidate the store that maybe you want to put it like, you know, not just in the rack, but front, so what would you suggest?
That's a great question because that drives to the balance that you have to strike in this relationship, because the reality is space is really expensive. It's hard. You're trying to tell so many stories within that space, and I think you really focus on the win-win. I mean, they are going to sell more. Maybe you have some evidence of a store that really did well with your brand, and they show it like this. A lot of stores don't want a lot of overt branding from all different places because they are, in essence, a brand themselves. But there may be a way, you know, that they can see a better return because really they invested in you, so it doesn't make sense to put their investment, you know, to the side and packed in. But you also maybe don't have the full perspective of the strategy, so maybe they rotate things and things do get sidelined and then out, and then, you know, not sidelined, but, you know, kind of moved around so everything gets its time in the sun.
So yes, I don't know if everybody, you all heard the question. So we're talking about like selling to pretty much two stores that are close by, right? So I'm guessing we're targeting the same kind of customers. And well, I don't know what you think about that. And to my point of view, you really felt like who's the store? You know exactly what's their vision, what are they doing? Because some of the stores they might be more like I'm saying like that. I don't know your product, but I'm saying they might be more on the very trendy side. All the ones that are very on the practical side. So, well, obviously, if you're showing them the exact same products, you know, of your line, they might not choose them. Did you have this issue already?
Yeah.
Maybe you're showing other.
Yeah,
selection, another selection.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that could be a way to do it. I mean, it is hard. You're in a locality; it's the same people that are coming in, and really, you're not doing a service to the locality if everyone's showing the same thing. So each of these stores have to be meaningfully different. They have to have a meaningfully different selection, or there's no point in having two stores that are selling the same things. So I think you should look at the store and see what's the most brand designed for you. I mean, obviously you're in one. I probably wouldn't take yourself out of that, but if you had a very extensive line, it could make sense that your selections are different enough. And as Emily said, you know, if they have completely different or meaningfully different vibes, you might be able to do it. But the reality is a local store is competing with other local stores as well as the whole world, but most specifically the local stores. So they really, I think everyone's best served if they've got a kind of tight, unique identity with a group of brands that are relatively unique. Other questions? Yay.
I suppose this one's a little bit more for you, Jen. So as a store, do you reorder, and how can we as brands make it easier for you to place reorders throughout the season?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, we do less reordering when there are more drops because it keeps getting, you know, there's continual excitement in the store. But we do some brands we do. I think we err on the side of domestic brands that are quick to fulfill. Because it ends up being a little bit easier. Certainly also flexibility and low minimums or no minimums is preferred on the reorder because the goods exist. It's in everyone's best interest for them to get in a loving household who will enjoy wearing them. And if there are high minimums or big hurdles to go over, we might opt not to. But if it's kind of, it's easy and palatable, I mean, everything's about ease. Everything's about convenience, ease, and terms, just, you know, making it not too expensive to buy into a new kind of onslaught of goods. Events, which is fun, you know, there can be gifts with purchase. Like, what we always look for is just another creative reason to drive people's attention. So for us, it's really the more creative and fun, you know, that will get people to care, the better. It doesn't mean high money or investment things. I think from a partnership standpoint, it's just really, you know, you want to communicate well with your vendors, know the kind of parameters of that relationship, so you're not asking too much in terms of like, how's this selling? I can tell you generally, but I might not be able to you know, print out a report and give you the nitty-gritty so that we can, you know, I know a lot of the brands want to know this information, but you know, we're always there to have the conversation, chat about what's working, give feedback, and I think somebody that's listening to that feedback and kind of strategizing together, because really it's us together that are going to make that brand successful. And I think it's the brand really, like the number one is I want to make this successful in your store for both me and you. Other questions? Alicia? One more. Yeah.
Well, it's become really common that stores, apart from brick and mortar, have also online section, which basically runs the same inventory. So as we also have our online store, we know that strong imagery, this is something that helps sell, whereas most of the time in like a real store, it's the hand feel or how it really sits when they try out. So what are your tips and tricks? Because you also have the store that has both brick and mortar and online. So what would you recommend as brands to what would be the best way to help us, to help you with the sales in this case when you deal with both?
everybody, of course, when they're shopping, they want to know that. So it's making it as easy as possible. For the shelf, I think some brands will give us one thing that I'd say don't do, and Emily talked and I talked about this earlier yesterday, because we don't stop talking when we're together because we so much good stuff. I don't think that it's a great idea to send a lot of catalogs or lookbooks and stuff like that. They don't generally get distributed. It's just more paper, and I think it might not be the best use of resources. Maybe inspiration. I don't know, because I don't know that anybody really does it. But I think kind of inspiration pictures of what it could look like on a shop surface versus how it could be merchandised. I think that could be helpful, or maybe tips on certain items and how, something unique about them that would make it a little bit more powerful for people. Again, it's just anything that really reads as a win-win, and not a mandate, but more of like, here's a tip that I think will make this really work well for you. Now, I know, Emily, you have worked in children's fashion, but you consult in a lot of different areas, including men's and women's fashion and beyond. Are there different brands or stores or things that you've seen outside of children's that you think people should watch or do it really well? I know you said streetwear is one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously streetwear, but it's big because with this like drop thing, we managed to have a line, outside the store. I don't know if you went to Spring, in New York, but when they have drops, they have line, and you have to wait like pretty much 2 hours, to get it. That's a very, very specific example. I guess in New York, you have many stores that are very interesting, in the beauty industry, in the fashion industry. I follow Nike, obviously, because they're big, they're worldwide, international, they're very good with new technology. But also, I feel they really like their sales associates are really, really representative of the brand. They really they breathe the brand, so they give you exactly what you're looking for. They know exactly what you're coming at. They are sports athletes as well. So I feel like the vision of the brand comes through the whole thing up until you customer, and that's very important. I think there's a very interesting brand as well. It's a Korean brand called Beauty, but the stories are wonderful. It's in Union Square. The name is Innisfree. I don't know if you know this brand. And it's very sustainable. It's very fresh. They have good customer service. They are very involved with sustainable as well. So I think it's kind of interesting too. Some other brands, for teenagers, like American Eagle Outfitter, this brand, they have a brand new store as well in Union Square. Brand new, maybe here for like a year or so. They customize a lot of things, on site. I'm thinking all these little tips. It's very interesting actually to go and to visit other stores, not even your industry, but to see what's going on, what's the trend, what are those millennial moms and dads are shopping right now, and what's going to be next. So I feel if you can get a great idea of other industries, you can get the best practices as well, from other industries and apply them to your own industry. And visiting the stores is really, really important for you in your own country, but also when you're in a foreign country. So you really get this vibe of trends and of what's going on. And again, I feel like adapting to the country you're targeting, to the customers you're targeting, researching, doing your homework. I know we're repeating this a lot, but that's just the strong fundamentals. That's just the basis of everything you can do to make your brand better and to really find this match with the perfect customers for you and the perfect stores for you as well.
Great. Thank you. One other thing that you said that I really like, because I think if you're a new brand and you're trying to reach a store and we're trying to kind of get out of the clutter and get attention, knowing the brands that store carries, knowing who you sit well with on the shelf, who's part of their existing selection, stores what stores or customers, you're seeing those connections. I think that's a great thing to bring up, or if you have a success story with a store that had this and this and in another locale, and it would just kind of make you stand out a little bit, or kind of get you to the top of the pile, because there's already trust built with certain brands that exist, and if you relate to that without being the same as that, so it's really, you're meaningfully different, but really working that same customer base. I think pointing stuff out like that is helpful and compelling. It will capture some additional attention when you get, a lot of brands kind of looking to be in a relatively small amount of stores. I think success stories of friendly neighbors is a good thing. All right, let me see what time it is. All right, we're getting close, so I think we can take one or two more questions if you'd like, if anybody has anything. Okay. Oh, yeah.
One quick question. How do you, as a store, handle shipping mistakes when things come in and there's a problem? What's the procedure?
I mean, that's a daily challenge. We have 250 brands. You have to be so, people make mistakes. They make them all the time on a buying side. I think, and I was talking to somebody on the floor the other day, just be mindful. You may be shipping yourself, or maybe you've got a company doing it. Know what they're shipping out, how it's coming, and this isn't quite speaking to that, but I'll get to that. Know what the packing slip looks like. Know how each of the garments are being represented. Is it a number? Is it a name? What does that look like? Is it easy? Because again, you have your sales associates in some cases, or maybe a team that receives, but the easier it is, the clearer it is, the easier and faster you're on the floor. So it behooves everyone, and it does get frustrating if it is a messy situation. When there are mistakes made, I mean, we generally call the brand's attention to them, and it really depends. If they're an international brand versus a domestic brand, we might have two different strategies. A lot of times, if it's a small one item or a couple item mistake, the brand normally asks if we want to keep them, and sometimes they'll say, we won't charge you for them if it's pretty de minimis compared to the order. If you sent me 0, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, and you sent me 25 size 2, I don't want that, because I can't do much with that. But if you over or under ship a little, I think that's okay. If it's a chronic problem, that can be more of a problem, because that feels to the buyer more like an allocation issue, where some people are getting priority